I still remember that morning, June 28, 1914, so vividly that sometimes I feel as if I am still standing on the stone-paved streets of Sarajevo. Smelling the dampness of early fog clinging to my coat. Decades have passed since then, and my grandchildren have been born into a world entirely different from mine. Yet I still carry in my memory the image of that seemingly peaceful morning, the morning that opened the gates of hell for all of Europe. At that time, I was just a young officer assigned to one of the security posts along the route that Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, would travel. Everyone was tense, not because of any obvious danger, but because of the strange, heavy atmosphere that blanketed the city. Sarajevo was a place where any corner could lead to unrest. Among Serbs, Bosnians, Croats, Austro-Hungarians, even the smallest spark could ignite hatred. I remember as I was checking the formation of the guards, a friend of mine whispered, "Have you heard anything about those extremist Serbian youths? I heard they're planning something today." I merely scoffed. In Sarajevo, there were always rumors, but that small, dismissive smile would haunt me for the rest of my life, because only a few hours later I understood that our complacency, the complacency of the entire security apparatus, had paved the way for tragedy. The Archduke arrived by train. When he stepped down, he didn't look at all like the cold, imposing heir depicted in the newspapers. He was stiff, his face shadowed by the weariness of someone who had witnessed far too many political intrigues. Beside him was his wife, Duchess Sophie, who smiled gently, though I knew their marriage had once been harshly opposed by the court in Vienna. Despite their royal titles, Sophie was considered not noble enough by imperial standards, and they had spent many years living under whispers and disdain. Yet that day, she appeared strangely content. The motorcade moved through the crowded streets. People pushed forward to watch, waving flags and cheering, not always out of loyalty, but often simply curiosity. Within that crowd, I knew there were eyes that looked at the Archduke not with admiration, but with hatred. We, the protectors, did not know then that among the crowd were 7 young men from the group, Black Hand. Among them, a thin, pale-faced boy who looked no different from the students sipping coffee on the street corner, Gavrilo Princip. No one imagined that this slight young man would soon alter the fate of the entire world. When the motorcade crossed the first bridge, I was standing very close. From behind, I heard a soft pop, as if someone had dropped something. Then a violent explosion tore through the air. A grenade had been thrown at the Archduke's car. Chaos erupted, people screamed, soldiers raised their rifles, dust and smoke rolled through the street. But strangely, the grenade struck the edge of the car, bounced off, and exploded behind it, failing to kill its intended target. The Archduke and his wife were unharmed. Only a few escorts were wounded by shrapnel. While we rushed to arrest the bomber, Nedeljko Kabrinovic, the Archduke did something that stunned me. He pushed aside the trembling mayor and said, "We cannot allow this cowardly attack to disrupt the visit. I insist on continuing the program." We tried to stop him, but he refused to change the route. That stubbornness, perhaps it, too, was part of fate. It seemed the morning's events had ended there, but that was only the beginning of a chain of mistakes, coincidences, and dark destinies that no one could prevent. After the explosion, we recommended altering the route, but orders from Vienna arrived too slowly. Everything unfolded in a confusion of contradictory information. Meanwhile, the Archduke insisted on visiting the wounded at the hospital, an act of duty, but also a decision that would lead him directly to his death. I was reassigned to a section near the Latin Bridge Market, where Apple Key ran along the Miljacka River. It was a tight corner, and for reasons I still call the mistake of fate, the Archduke's driver forgot about the planned route change. The car followed the old path and turned onto a street it should not have entered. At that moment everything seemed to slow, as if time itself had frozen. The Archduke's car halted, not because of an order, but because the confused driver tried to reverse. I stood a few dozen meters away and saw the Archduke lean forward. Puzzled, Sophie placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, looking anxious. And in that exact moment, right at the doorway of Moritz Schiller's cafe, stood Gavrilo Princip. He wasn't even looking for an opportunity anymore. Later I learned he had been crushed by despair. Believing the plot had failed, he had gone inside to buy something, then paused outside in resignation. But just as he prepared to give up, the Archduke's car stopped right in front of him. It all happened in seconds. I saw his eyes, not the eyes of a madman, but of someone who believed he was fulfilling a mission of national liberation. A blind conviction, but one powerful enough to destroy civilizations. Princip drew his gun. I shouted. But the gunshot was faster. Bang. The first bullet struck the Archduke in the chest. Bang. The second pierced the Duchess Sophie's abdomen. I ran forward, but fate had already spoken. I heard the Archduke whisper, "Sophie, don't die, for the children." Blood soaked his coat, yet he held her tightly, as if he could protect her even in their final moments. The Duchess collapsed first, her eyes wide open, as if unable to believe that the love they had fought so many years for, against the disdain of the court, would end like this. Franz Ferdinand did not scream or panic. Just 10 minutes later, he died in the car, his head leaning to one side, blood drying beneath his mustache. I stood there, hands shaking, feeling the ground soften beneath me, not just from the horror of death, but from a cold certainty rising within me. Europe would never be the same again. When Princip was arrested, he did not resist. He uttered only one sentence, a sentence I still remember. "I am a Serb." No remorse, no tremor, only a brutal conviction. None of us knew then that those 2 bullets would lead to over 20 million deaths in the next 4 years. News of the assassination spread faster than any telegram. That night, Sarajevo drowned in tension. Soldiers posted everywhere, but what frightened me more were the things we could not see, the secret meetings. The ultimatums, the plans that had been sitting in drawers for years. Though I was only a low-ranking officer, I felt the fury rising from Vienna. The Austro-Hungarian court saw the assassination as an unforgivable humiliation. In taverns, I overheard officers whisper, "This is the excuse they've waited for. Balkans must be punished, Serbia must pay." I knew that if it wasn't Princip, it would have been someone else. For years, Europe had been a powder keg, every nation entering an age of armament. Preparing for war no one dared name. Austria-Hungary feared decline. Germany wanted to prove its industrial might. Russia saw Serbia as a younger brother to protect. France carried the bitterness of the Franco-Prussian War. Britain feared Germany's rise at sea. We, the young soldiers, were merely small gears in that enormous machine. But we were the ones who would pay in blood. On July 23, Austria-Hungary sent Serbia a 10-point ultimatum demanding total submission. I shuddered upon hearing it, knowing even the least knowledgeable person could see. The ultimatum was not meant to be accepted. It was meant to justify war. When Serbia accepted most points but refused those meant to humiliate it, Vienna declared war immediately. Then the alliances triggered like falling dominoes. Russia mobilized. Germany declared war on Russia. Then on France. Britain declared war on Germany. Europe was like a massive, rusty engine roaring to life with the thunder of artillery. I was sent to the front in Galicia, not because I wanted to go, but because every man in the empire was being swept into the war. I watched my friends fall because of decisions made by men who had never seen a battlefield. I walked through fields where thousands lay scattered like broken mannequins toppled by the wind. I heard artillery shake the earth, heard the screams of the wounded, saw the night sky burn like the mouth of hell. During those years, I often asked myself, if that car hadn't stopped in Sarajevo that morning, would any of this have happened? But history does not allow, what if? There is only the path we walked, a path carved by Princip's bullets. By Balkan chaos, by imperial pride, by fear and ambition of great powers. When the war ended in 1918, I returned to Sarajevo. The city was no longer the place I once knew. Blackened buildings, empty streets, the Austro-Hungarian Empire gone, new nations rising from the ashes. But within me remained the memory of that morning. When I grew old, I sometimes sat by the slow-flowing Miljacka River and wondered, did Franz Ferdinand and Sophie die not only because their driver took the wrong turn, but because all of Europe had taken the wrong turn long before? What I do know is this. In history, it is not always the greatest battles or the mightiest armies that shape destiny. Sometimes it is the smallest moments. The fragile slices of fate, like a car stopping in the wrong place, that change the lives of millions. And on June 28, 1914, in Sarajevo, I stood there and watched the moment the world fell into darkness.